Sophia Winslow adjusted the strap of her borrowed camera bag as she slipped through the service entrance of Riverside Manor Estate. At 28, she'd learned that confidence sold lies better than any forged credential ever could. Her press pass, printed on her roommate's office printer just 3 hours ago, hung around her neck like a shield against suspicion. The wedding venue was obscene. Crystal chandeliers dripped from vaulted ceilings like frozen waterfalls, and enough white roses to bankrupt a florist shop cascaded down marble columns. Sophia's photographer's eye catalogued every detail, her fingers already itching to capture the excess. This was Julian Cross's wedding, tech billionaire and youngest CEO to ever take a company public before 30. One good portfolio shot from today could change everything. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. She raised her camera, framing a shot of the ornate altar, when chaos erupted. The main doors burst open. Protesters flooded in, waving signs about corporate greed and environmental destruction. Guests screamed. Security guards rushed forward. And somewhere in the pandemonium, the bride vanished. Sophia pressed herself against a wall, hard hammering. She should leave. She should run before someone discovered she didn't belong here. But then a hand grabbed her wrist, a frantic woman in a headset, eyes wild with panic. "Thank God you're here," the coordinator gasped. "They said you were the backup planner. Please, you have to help me salvage this." Sophia's mouth opened to correct her, but then she saw him. Julian Cross stood at the center of the chaos, perfectly still, his dark eyes scanning the destruction with unnerving calm. When his gaze landed on her, something shifted in his expression. "Can you fix this?" he asked quietly, stepping closer. "Or should I cancel everything?" Sophia's survival instinct kicked in. Trespassing at a billionaire's wedding could mean lawsuits, criminal charges, ruin. Her student debt was already crushing her. She couldn't afford legal trouble. "I can handle it," she heard herself say. The lie tasted like copper on her tongue. "Give me 30 minutes, Sophia said, her mind already racing through possibilities. The main venue was destroyed, guests were scattering, and somewhere a bride had fled. But chaos was just another word for opportunity if you knew how to look at it right. Julian studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Make it work." Sophia grabbed the coordinator. "Where's the penthouse suite?" 20 minutes later, she'd transformed Julian's private quarters into something that could pass for an intimate ceremony. Candlelight instead of chandeliers. A handful of confused but cooperative relatives instead of 300 guests. She'd even tracked down a violinist from the scattered musicians, promising him double pay if he played something romantic. It was absurd. It was desperate. But somehow it was working. The officiant, bewildered but professional, took his position. Declan Cross, Julian's younger brother, watched from the sideline with an expression Sophia couldn't quite read. Suspicion mixed with something that might have been amusement. Then Julian entered, and Sophia's breath caught. He'd removed his jacket, loosened his tie. Without the formal armor, he looked younger, almost vulnerable. He stood at the makeshift altar, and for the first time since this disaster began, she saw something flicker across his face. Not heartbreak over his vanished bride. Something else entirely. Relief. The ceremony proceeded in a surreal blur. Julian spoke his vows to empty air while Sophia watched from behind a column, her camera forgotten in her hands. When it ended, she expected him to dismiss her, pay her off, make her sign an NDA. Instead, his phone exploded with notifications. Paparazzi photos were already trending online. Headlines screamed about a secret elopement, an intimate ceremony, a mysterious change of plans. The narrative had written itself, and it was perfect for him. Julian found her in the hallway, his expression unreadable. "You're good in a crisis," he said. "I need to hire you for something else." Sophia should have said no, should have run while she still could. But desperation made people do reckless things. Sophia woke in sheets softer than anything she'd ever touched. For one blissful moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back. The wedding, the chaos, Julian's offer that she'd been too exhausted to fully process. She stumbled into the kitchen and found Gloria tense setting out breakfast with practiced efficiency. The older woman's eyes were warm but knowing, as if she could see straight through every lie Sophia had ever told. "Mr. Cross is in his office," Gloria said simply. Julian sat behind a mahogany desk, his suit already perfect despite the early hour. He slid a document across the polished surface, a contract, dense with legal terminology. 3 months, he said without preamble. You pose as my wife. Attend events. Live here. Convince the world we're married. In exchange, I pay off your student debt immediately. $80,000. Plus a $50,000 bonus when the arrangement ends. Sophia's hands shook as she read. Why? Harrison Cross left me his company with a condition. I must be married by my 35th birthday, which is 10 weeks away. The board wants me out. This marriage stabilizes everything. This is insane. It's business. Sophia wanted to refuse. Wanted to walk out with her integrity intact. But then her phone rang. Her father's neighbor, frantic, explaining about the hospital, the bills, the machines keeping him alive. She looked at Julian, at the contract, at the impossible choice before her. Debt paid immediately, she said, her voice steady despite everything. Not after 3 months. He didn't hesitate. Agreed. She signed. The pen felt heavy as a verdict. Later, back in her tiny studio apartment, Ivy helped her pack with tears streaming down her face. Don't lose yourself in there, her best friend whispered. But as Sophia returned to the penthouse that evening, she wondered if it was already too late. Julian's rescue dog, Zara, approached her immediately, the first time the anxious animal had trusted a stranger in years. Julian watched from the doorway, confusion flickering across his usually controlled features. She never does that, he said quietly. Sophia knelt, letting Zara nuzzle her hand. Maybe she knows I'm as scared as she is. For a moment, something almost human crossed Julian's face. Then his walls snapped back into place. Your room is ready, he said, turning away. We start tomorrow. The transformation began at dawn. Stylists descended like a well-dressed army, armed with fabric swatches and color palettes. Sophia stood on a platform while 3 women circled her, pinning and tucking designer clothes that cost more than her monthly rent. Shoulders back, the lead stylist commanded. Mrs. Cross doesn't slouch. Mrs. Cross. The name felt like a costume that didn't fit. The PR team was worse. They crafted a love story from whole cloth. Julian and Sophia had met at a charity auction 6 months ago. Love at first sight. A whirlwind romance kept private until they couldn't hide their feelings anymore. The lies were beautiful, polished, utterly convincing. Now, let's practice, the media consultant said, positioning Sophia beside Julian on the living room sofa. Hold hands. No, naturally. Like you've done this 1,000 times. Sophia reached for Julian's hand. His fingers were cold, mechanical. You're too stiff, Julian said, his voice clinical. Relax. Something inside her snapped. Hard to relax when you're treating me like a prop in your corporate theater. His jaw tightened. This only works if it's believable. Then maybe try believing it yourself. The room went silent. The PR team exchanged uncomfortable glances. Then Declan appeared in the doorway, his easy smile cutting through the tension. Everyone needs a break, he announced. Sophia, walk with me. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Outside, among the manicured gardens, Declan told her things Julian never would. How their family lost everything when Julian was 19. How he'd worked 3 jobs while putting Declan through college. How Harrison Cross had seen potential in a desperate kid and given him a chance. My brother's been performing his entire life, Declan said softly. He's forgotten how to be real. That evening, Sophia visited her father in the hospital. Mr. Winslow's eyes were sharp despite his weakened state. Where'd you get money for this hospital? He asked, suspicious. She lied again, hating herself for it. When she returned to the penthouse, she found Julian on the balcony, staring at the city lights. He turned when she approached. You okay? He asked. It was the first real question he'd asked her. Not part of the script. Not for show. I'm fine, she lied. He didn't push. But he stayed. The tech gala was everything Sophia had feared. Crystal chandeliers cast diamond patterns across marble floors. Manhattan's elite mingled in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, each conversation a carefully choreographed dance of power and influence. Sophia's emerald dress fit perfectly, but she felt like an imposter playing dress-up in someone else's life. Julian's hand rested at the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. To everyone watching, They were the perfect couple. But Sophia felt the tension in his touch, the careful distance he maintained even while appearing intimate. Then Vanessa Sterling arrived. She was stunning, blonde hair swept into an elegant chignon, a silver gown that probably cost more than Sophia's car. But it was her eyes that caught Sophia's attention. Behind the perfect makeup and practiced smile lived something raw and wounded. Vanessa cornered Sophia near the champagne fountain, her smile sharp as broken glass. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into," she said softly, each word precisely aimed. "Julian doesn't love. He acquires. And when he's done with you, you'll understand exactly what I mean." Before Sophia could respond, Julian materialized at her side. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining with unexpected gentleness. "Dance with me," he said. It wasn't a question. On the dance floor, everything changed. Julian's hand settled on her waist, pulling her close. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, the performance felt terrifyingly real. "What did Vanessa say?" he asked, his voice low. "Nothing I couldn't handle." His thumb traced a small circle on her waist, probably unconscious. Sophia's breath caught. A reporter appeared, microphone extended. "Mr. Cross, tell us about your whirlwind romance. How did you two meet?" Sophia's mind went blank. The practice story evaporated like smoke. But Julian didn't miss a beat. He looked at her with something that almost resembled tenderness and began spinning a tale so beautiful, so convincing, that even Sophia found herself believing it. In the car ride home, silence stretched between them like a living thing. "Thank you," Sophia finally said, "for saving me back there." Julian stared out the window. That's what partners do. The word hung in the air. Partners. Not business associates. Not contractors. Partners. Back at the penthouse, they parted ways without another word. But later, lying awake in her room, Sophia replayed the dance in her mind. The way Julian had looked at her. The gentle pressure of his hand. The moment when performance had felt dangerously close to truth. In his own room, Julian stood at the window, unable to sleep, unable to stop thinking about the woman down the hall who made him feel something he'd spent years trying to avoid. Feeling anything at all. Life in the penthouse slipped into a rhythm that felt almost normal, dangerously so. Each morning, Sophia found coffee made exactly how she liked it, though Julian never mentioned doing it. Little gestures accumulated, photography books appeared, conversations deepened, and one night, they ate pizza from the box, arguing about pineapple toppings and streaming shows. "You're surprisingly normal when you're not being a billionaire," she teased. "And you're surprisingly comfortable when you're not terrified of me," he replied. Their laughter faded when a call shattered the moment. Her father was in critical condition. Julian drove her to the hospital without hesitation and stayed through the long night, silent but steadfast. When her father stabilized days later, Sophia learned an anonymous donor had covered every expense. She knew who it was. "You had no right," she told Julian. "I had every right. You're my wife. It's not real, it's a contract." "Is it?" he said quietly. Because it stopped feeling like business weeks ago. Her defenses crumbled. When he held her, she didn't resist. For the first time, nothing between them felt false. That night, watching him asleep beside the dog, Sophia knew the truth. She was falling, and the landing would hurt like hell. The tabloid hit the breakfast table like a bomb. Mystery Woman's secret past exposed. Every part of Sophia's life was twisted. Debts, dreams, even fake photos implying she'd stalked Julian. Online, strangers called her a gold digger and fraud. Julian was already in crisis mode, phone pressed to his ear, barely acknowledging her. By noon, his board called an emergency meeting, rivals pounced, and stock prices fell. His lawyers flooded the penthouse, drafting statements as if she weren't there. When she tried to speak, Julian snapped. "If you'd been more careful." "Don't you dare blame me," Sophia shot back. "I never asked for this." "And yet you signed the contract," he said coldly. That afternoon, Vanessa appeared on a podcast, crying as she painted Julian, and by extension, Sophia, as manipulative users. The internet turned savage. Then her father called, voice shaking. "Is it true? Did you sell yourself?" Before she could explain, he hung up. Hours later, he was back in the ICU. Broken, Sophia packed her suitcase. Ivy found her crying on the floor. "You have to leave," she whispered. Before dawn, Sophia slipped out, leaving behind a note, her ring, and the only place that had ever felt like home. Julian came home to silence, and a note beside Sophia's wedding ring. "Better off without you." The words gutted him. Declan found him hours later, shattered. "I ruined her," Julian said. "Then fix it," Declan replied. But things worsened. His father's will demanded proof that his marriage was genuine, or Julian would lose everything. An evaluator, Dr. Evelyn Park, would decide. Without Sophia, he was doomed. He begged her to return, not for the company, but because he couldn't breathe without her. She agreed, only until the evaluation ended. Dr. Park saw through every lie. "Tell me about the moment you fell in love," she asked. Julian abandoned the script. It wasn't one moment. It was her coffee, her laughter, how she made me see beauty again. Sophia's voice trembled. "I fell for the man who stopped pretending. But loving him is exactly why I can't stay." Dr. Park's assignment, love letters, shared fears, a weekend alone, forced them closer. In a small cabin, laughter returned. By the fire, Julian confessed. "I'm afraid of forgetting how to be human. I'm afraid of becoming my father," Sophia whispered. When Dr. Park later asked what was real, Julian said, "When I feared losing her more than losing everything else." The contract leaked on a Tuesday, exploding across the internet. Fake marriage confirmed. Julian Cross bought a bride for $130,000. Every clause, payment, and condition was exposed, reducing their relationship to numbers and signatures. Marcus Way seized the moment, calling for Julian's resignation as investors fled and his empire crumbled. But the personal fallout was worse. Sophia was branded a fraud, her inbox flooded with hate. Her photography career was ruined overnight. Then came the call that broke her. Her father's voice, cold and shaking. "Is this who you are now? Your mother would be ashamed." Hours later, he was back in the ICU, refusing to see her. Sophia found Julian buried in crisis meetings, too focused on saving the company to notice she was falling apart. When he turned away mid-call, she understood. She would always come second. That night, she packed what little was truly hers. Gloria watched, tearful. "He loves you. He just doesn't know how to show it." "I can't be ashes in someone else's fire," Sophia whispered. She left a note and her ring on the counter. By dawn, Julian returned to an empty home. Reading her letter, his hands shook. "I ruined her," he told Declan. "Then fight for her," his brother said. Julian sat beside Zara, the dog grieving in silence, and finally wept. Gloria's words were gentle but sharp. "You fell in love. Now decide if you're brave enough to prove it." The next morning, Julian received Dr. Evelyn Park's final evaluation, the verdict on his future. He didn't open it. Some things, he realized, mattered more than success. Some loves were worth burning everything to save. Julian didn't leave his apartment for 3 days. Declan brought food that went uneaten. Gloria tidied around him while he sat motionless on the sofa. Dr. Park's unopened evaluation on the coffee table like a ticking bomb. The board's final vote was scheduled for Friday morning. His entire future, everything he'd built, everything Harrison had entrusted to him, all of it hung in the balance. He didn't care. Without Sophia, the penthouse felt like a mausoleum. Every room held echoes of her. The kitchen where she'd taught him that coffee was better with cinnamon, the balcony where they'd talked until sunrise, the living room where she'd covered him with blankets when he fell asleep working. Even Zara seemed to be mourning, lying in Sophia's empty closet and refusing comfort. On Thursday morning, Julian finally opened Dr. Park's evaluation. After extensive observation and analysis, "It is my professional opinion that the marriage between Julian Cross and Sophia Winslow is genuine. The subjects demonstrate authentic emotional attachment, mutual vulnerability, and the complex behavioral patterns consistent with romantic love. However, external pressures and internal fears have prevented them from fully acknowledging or acting on these feelings. Recommendation: the marriage is real. Whether it survives is entirely up to them." Julian read the words 3 times, then set the document down and made the easiest decision of his life. He called his lawyer. "Draw up my resignation from Cross Innovations. Effective immediately. Julian, if you just present the evaluation." "I don't care about the evaluation. I'm done." Next, he called the board directly. Marcus Way answered, barely concealing his triumph. "I'm withdrawing my claim to Harrison's estate," Julian said calmly. "I'm resigning as CEO. The company is yours, Marcus." Congratulations. Silence. Then, what's the angle here? No angle. I'm out. He hung up before Marcus could respond. The press release went out within the hour. Julian Cross steps down as CEO, accepts full responsibility for controversy. The statement was simple and devastating. Sophia Winslow is guilty of nothing except trusting me. I created the arrangement that has caused her such pain. She entered into it for honorable reasons, to save her father's life. I entered into it for selfish ones. Whatever judgment is deserved belongs solely to me. I am resigning from all positions effective immediately and liquidating personal assets to compensate investors affected by recent stock volatility. I wish Cross Innovations every success under new leadership. I have more important things to rebuild. The statement went viral within minutes. The board, expecting a fight, found themselves without an adversary. Marcus Way, on camera, actually looked uncertain for the first time in his career. Julian didn't watch the coverage. He was already in his car, driving to the only place that mattered. He found Sophia at her father's hospital room. She sat beside Mr. Winslow's bed, reading aloud from a photography book, her voice hoarse with exhaustion and tears. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by grief and public crucifixion. When she saw Julian in the doorway, every defense slammed into place. Her eyes went hard, her jaw set. "You can't be here," she said. Julian stepped into the room anyway. He looked different. No suit, just jeans and a sweater, his hair uncombed, shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "I know," he said simply. Then he knelt beside her chair, ignoring the bewildered stare of Mr. Winslow. "But I needed to tell you something. Julian, you were never part of a deal to me, Sophia. You were never a transaction or a strategy or a means to an end. You were the moment I remembered how to be human. You were every morning coffee and every late-night conversation and every time I laughed without calculating the optics. You were real in a life I'd built entirely on performance." Sophia's hands trembled in her lap. "Why are you here?" "Because I was so afraid of losing the company that I didn't realize I was losing you. Because I made the wrong choice, and I'm here to make the right one." He pulled Dr. Park's evaluation from his jacket and held it out. "I don't care what this says. I care what you say. I care if you can forgive me for being so focused on saving my empire that I forgot you're not part of the empire. You're the reason any of it mattered." Sophia took the envelope with shaking hands. She read Dr. Park's conclusion through a blur of tears. "Genuine. You didn't have to resign," she whispered. "Yes, I did. I was so terrified of becoming nothing that I couldn't see I'd already become something. Your partner, if you'd let me be. I'd rather be broke and yours than rich and alone." Mr. Winslow, who'd been silent through this entire exchange, finally spoke. His voice was weak but clear. "Sophia, is he good to you?" Sophia looked at her father, then at Julian, then at her own hands clutching the evaluation that validated what she'd been too afraid to trust. "He sees me," she said softly. "The real me. Not the person I pretend to be or the person I'm afraid of becoming. He sees who I actually am, and he stays." Mr. Winslow studied Julian with the intensity of a father protecting his daughter. "You hurt her. You let the world hurt her." "I did," Julian said, not looking away. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it if she'll let me. I can't promise I'll always make the right choice, but I can promise she'll always be the choice I make." Mr. Winslow was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What are you waiting for, Sophia? Life's too short to waste on fear." Sophia stood, the evaluation still clutched in her hand. Julian rose to face her, and the distance between them felt both infinite and insignificant. "You gave up everything," she said. "I didn't give up anything. I chose what matters. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not brave enough?" Julian reached for her hand, and she let him take it. "Then we'll be scared together. And maybe that's enough." Sophia looked at this man who'd crashed into her life with a fake wedding and somehow become the realest thing she'd ever known. She thought about her grandmother's advice. Make something beautiful from nothing. This was nothing like what she'd planned. This was messy and complicated and terrifying. This was real. "No more contracts," she said. "No more performances. If we do this, we do it because we choose to. Every single day." Julian pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "I choose you, Sophia. I'll choose you every day for the rest of my life if you'll let me." She kissed him then, gentle and real and exactly right. No cameras, No audience, no one to perform for. Just two people who'd found each other in the chaos and decided to hold on. Outside the hospital room, Ivy, Declan, and Gloria waited anxiously. When Sophia and Julian emerged hand in hand, Ivy actually squealed with joy. Declan clapped his brother on the back with genuine pride. Gloria simply smiled, her eyes knowing. "Took you long enough," she said. 6 months later, Sophia stood in a small Brooklyn gallery, surrounded by photographs she'd captured during her time in Julian's world. The exhibition was called Performing versus Being, and it told the story of two people learning to be real. The centerpiece was a candid shot she'd taken one morning. Julian asleep on their modest apartment sofa, Zara curled against him, morning light streaming through windows. His face was peaceful in a way it never was when he was awake. Vulnerable, human, beautiful. The caption read simply, "Real." Julian stood beside her, no longer uncomfortable with public vulnerability. They'd gotten married again 3 weeks ago, a real ceremony this time. Just them and the people who mattered, in a courthouse with fluorescent lighting and a clerk who'd yawned through their vows. No designer gowns, no paparazzi, no performance. It had been perfect. Julian had started a small ethical tech company, funded by his remaining savings. Sophia freelanced and taught photography to underprivileged kids. They lived above Gloria's brownstone because she refused to charge them rent, and Mr. Winslow came for dinner every Sunday, his health improving alongside his restored faith in his daughter. A critic from a major publication approached them, notepad in hand. "Ms. Winslow, your work is remarkable. Where did you find your inspiration?" Sophia looked at Julian, at this man who'd given up an empire to prove love was worth more, and smiled. "I found it when I stopped looking for what I thought I wanted and started seeing what I actually needed." That night, they walked home through Brooklyn streets, hand in hand, Zara trotting contentedly between them. The Penthouse was sold, the company was thriving under new leadership, and their bank account was laughably modest compared to what it had been. Julian had never been happier. "Any regrets?" Sophia asked as they climbed the stairs to their apartment. Julian pulled her close, kissing her softly. "Only that I wasted time being afraid." "Me too." Inside their small apartment, surrounded by secondhand furniture and Sophia's photography equipment and the life they were building together, Julian opened a bottle of cheap wine and Sophia ordered pizza with pineapple just to watch him pretend to be offended. Zara curled up on the couch, finally at peace. And somewhere in the universe, Harrison Cross smiled. His final lesson had been learned. Love isn't a weakness. Fear is. And the truest endings are always the ones we choose, freely, fearlessly, and for no one's benefit but our own. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.